Hey, good evening to you folks. How are you? It is good to see you, and it is good to be seen by you. I, of course, am the one and only Bill Sylvie, aka the Dungeon Delver, coming to you loud and clear on a Wednesday evening. And we've got a banger of a show for you tonight, guys. Kyle will be joining us here momentarily. He's actually revving up, having a cup of strong coffee off in the green room right now. He's going to be joining us, and we're going to be talking about RuneQuest, which that's an RPG I've never played before. I actually don't think I own a copy of RuneQuest. If I do, it is somewhere here in the Delver's Dungeon. But just a quick reminder, folks, if you haven't already, please do click the subscribe button, click the bell icon for notifications if you like what we do. And especially if you like what we do, if you're watching this after the fact, post ex facto, as they say, then please give it a thumbs up and leave a comment down below and tell me what you like about it, and I'll do more of it. And if you don't like it, leave a thumbs down and leave a comment below and tell me what you didn't like about it, and I'll do less of that thing within reason. Switch to podcast or only, or turn this into a crafting channel. I'm not going to do those things. But anyway, hello to you all, and I'm glad you're all here tonight. There is one bit of business that I want to go over. I want to mention this in passing. If this individual is watching, this is a friendly call out. This is a call out in a very good and well-intentioned way. Injun Joe, if you are watching, I owe you a set of 3D printed owl bears because you got a trivia question right many weeks ago, and I have been up to my neck busy. I still owe those to you. If you would please, I will look through messages and stuff to try and find it. But if you happen to be catching this, buddy, if you could email me your mailing address so I can get you that set of 3D printed 28 millimeter owl bears, that would be super cool. I owe those to you, and you deserve more than just, well, you'll get them someday. You will actually get them. I've been delinquent in my duties as a good host. And speaking of being a host, not in the sense that a chest burster is about to pop out of me, but rather in the idea of having a co-host, let me welcome my co-host, the Thunderer from Down Under. Everybody put your hands together and then take them apart because we can't hear you applaud for the one and only Mr. Kyle Schuant. Kyle, how are you, sir?
Hello, boys and girls. I'm here with my copies of RuneQuest ready to go.
Copies of RuneQuest. Excellent. So this is going to be a lot of fun because I know the BRP system insofar as it covers Call of Cthulhu, but I have never dipped my toes into the RuneQuest pool. So this is going to be a lot of fun. And Kyle, I'm going to leave this up to you since this is your aircraft tonight. Do we want to talk a little RuneQuest history first, or do we just want to dig right in? What do you want to do?
Well, we can talk a little bit of history. I don't know a whole lot, but we can talk a little bit. Let's bring on Corey on so he can join the conversation.
Oh, that's right. We have a third. This is a guy who's been hanging around for a minute or two. He's an early fan of the show. He's a swell guy. He's supported this show really right out of the gate. and we like him a lot around these parts. So
and I feel for the guy too, because he's been waiting on the D&D Hexcrawl game to start. But there just haven't been enough other players, and he's about ready to like roll up an entire party and be a fighter magic user cleric thief multi-class or something.
There you go. You use the method 6 from Unearthed Arcana and just give yourself like 17s and 18s and everything, and then
So I thought let's at least bring the poor guy on so he can have a chat about RuneQuest or something.
Perfectly cromulent decision. So everyone, let's give
greetings
to Lord Coron. Hello, how are you?
I'm doing great, my friends.
Excellent.
How is everybody here?
I can't complain. Well, I could, but only Kyle and a select few people would listen.
All right. History of RuneQuest.
Yes.
History of RuneQuest. My understanding is that it basically came about from a bunch of guys going, D&D is totally unrealistic combat, man. It's not like what we do in the SCA when we have our boffer swords and our foam swords and our plastic chainmail and stuff. It's totally unrealistic, man. We have to make it more realistic. So they don't have escalating hit points, and you have an attack percentage and a parry percentage and all this sort of stuff, as you'll see when we get into it. But it was basically born out of discontent with the rules. And that was half of it, Steve Perrin. The other half was Greg Stafford, who had his own campaign world. So there was the first edition. The earliest one that I've got here is the second edition. It differs from the first edition really only in fixing some errata. There's some errata. So they have on the inner page, they've got that stuff. And it says things like, page 3, RuneQuest no longer uses 1d12, where it appears substitute 2d6. Technological base, Glorantha is a Bronze Age world. The prevalent, so technology, scenario movement, double movement skills, speeds, and there's a few other little minor rules type things, but it's one page worth, and apart from that, it's pretty much the same as the first edition was.
Which is really how editions should be. That's just my hot take, my fire in the hole opinion is that quote unquote new editions should be bug fixes. The whole burn everything down and start anew. That never sat with me.
Well, nowadays, thanks to software, we would have called this edition not edition 2, but edition 1.1 or something.
Yeah.
It'd be like that. Now,
and
so
it's
this
still
is
not beta tested properly.
Still not.
Well, no. Now we've got even better. So there's the Kickstarter, and of course, for software, we've got the early access. You can pay for the early access, and it's in early access for 11 years.
You can alpha test the software for us.
Yeah.
Wasn't that the red box though? They only made a few copies. That's like that's your A and B group right there, or whatever.
I guess. So I by the way, guys, I know Wikipedia, please don't throw things at me, audience, but there is a fairly comprehensive Wikipedia page that's pretty well maintained if you want to have a peek at a bit of the, roll up your sleeves and dig into the company files level of let's talk about the history. But yeah, as Kyle said, this was Greg Stafford did a fantasy board game called White Bear and Red Moon, which was later renamed Dragon Pass, and Chaosium marketed that because this Dragon Quest is like passed through many hands, and now it's back in Chaosium's hands. They published the first edition of RuneQuest, which was set in the world of Glorantha, and Stafford had created that for White Bear and Red Moon. And then Kyle was talking about the second edition, and then it went over to Avalon Hill for the third in 84. And by 98, I guess it had changed hands again. There was a Mongoose edition. And then by 2013, Moondragon Publications. And now I guess we've got a Chaosium version. I have seen the free RPG Day versions. That is my only experience with this. So this is going to be an educational time for everybody tonight, I think. So Kyle, over to you.
So we got this, the second edition, which, as I said, is functionally the same as the first edition. They just tweaked a few rules and that. There haven't really been instances in the history of RuneQuest where they've completely changed all the rules. What has changed is, so like I said, so first to second edition, no change of rules. Second to third edition, this box one, or as they call it, the Deluxe edition, all they did really was to separate Glorantha, the setting, from the rule set. They made the rule set more generic, medieval, Dark Ages fantasy kind of thing.
Mm-hmm.
And then, so that was going from, you can see down the corner, Chaosium. This went to, by the time they got to third, this went to Avalon Hill.
Oh.
Then, whether it was joint or they bought out or something, I'm not sure, but there was a compilation where they basically put 3 of the books, the Deluxe edition, into one hardback cover. And that was Chaosium and Avalon Hill and Games Workshop.
The Cursed Company.
Yeah. Now, I don't mind the idea of putting it all into one book, but this is a bit of a mess. So for example, the artwork is it's done by all different people. So you've got stuff like this. This dude, Barbarian, who's cut somebody's head off. And something you can see. Now that was pretty crappy artwork. This is very good artwork. Barbarian standing there with an animal skin hat and spear and stuff. And then there's some ordinary artwork. It looks more like a sketch than complete artwork.
Really just looks like a Warhammer Army book, honestly.
Yeah. And then it looks basically like they took a few spare sketches they had from other projects and chucked them in randomly. And the other thing they did was when they compiled it into one book, they didn't change any of the page references and stuff. So they go, oh yeah, we'll talk more about that on page 26. And you go to page 26 and it doesn't talk about that at all. Because in the old editions, it did refer to the correct page, but they didn't bother. It's Games Workshop.
That was too hard. They were busy, selling plastic.
Yeah, well, I'm not sure what year was that. It was because it originally came out 77 or 78. This Games Workshop one is 87.
87.
Copyright cover art is copyright 87. So that's their compiled one. So my personal favorite, as I said, is the Deluxe edition. Everyone likes a box set. I like the cover art because cover art's got both a man and a woman on it, so it appeals to all the players out there. Box is always nice and fun, fits on your bookshelf nicely. There's a little bit of evocative art on the back as well. It says The blurb is, your mounts are thirsty and weary. The green lands of home are many days behind. You ride into peril and fate unforeseen, for the dangers, monsters, and powers ahead are vast. But you and your friends are tough and cunning. You have mastered many of RuneQuest's hundreds of magical spells and conditions. You have chosen well from over 80 weapons and 11 types of armor. Each of you is different and individual. You belong to definite cultures. Your parents taught you trades, crafts, and skills. You have joined together to accomplish heroic deeds, and the mightiest evil will pause before your determined fellowship. RuneQuest unites game and imaginative reality. The combat rules are drawn from the author's long experience with hand-to-hand combat. Yeah, okay. Using the magic rules, you can recreate any wizard or mage of fictional film or create new ones yet undreamed of. By manipulating a few basic values, you can play individual and unique adventures drawn from 10 intelligent species. And then unparalleled realism and flexibility are yours, supported by rules easily understood and enjoyable to play. Though the RuneQuest rules examples are set in the dark ages of fantasy Europe, the game system is playable within any fantasy world. Okay, so there's the usual, overselling it a bit, but that's
definitely
that's
a good blurb. Yeah, I got what the game was about.
Tells us what the game's about, so that's what we want. Now, inside, we've got a number of books. It's more than just the usual 3-book thing that you get in most RPGs. What's this? All right. This I've got. Oh, I got notes from an old campaign. I've forgotten about that.
Well, you always like to find that kind of treasure.
There we go. All right. So there's, 7 different books here. Okay. We've got here the player's notes. Okay. So the role players say, there's the role player's work list. The tactician's work list begins with, listen to the game master. I approve. And don't do something without reason. It's got many good tips like that. Anyway, game aids, basically your GM screen, but it's not in screen format. It's just a little booklet. There's the player's book. The illustration on top. Player's book. Magic book. The game master book. The creature's book. And then, just because they couldn't bear giving up on their setting too much, the Glorantha book. So those are the ones that you need for play. All sitting within your box set. Those books. So it gives you a good bit to start reading, but the players only need to look at the player's book.
Right.
And also in there was RuneQuest map of Fantasy Europe.
Interesting.
And this was basically an almost blank map. It just has like Londinium and Burdigala and Massilia and everything, that sort of thing mentioned.
Well, it follows. I mean, the first Greyhawk campaign was just a map of North America that they had, Gary had just decided were fantasy locations before we got the later Greyhawk campaign map, and then finally the one that Darlene published.
Yeah, so, like I said, they decided to set it in Fantasy Europe. Okay. So the player's book, that's what we'll be looking at today.
Alrighty.
The Avalon Hill Game Company from Baltimore. I wonder what's it. Somebody look up for us. What's it? 4517 Harford Road, Baltimore these days.
Let's see. You go ahead and talk, Kyle, and I'll bring that up.
There's a player's book. So someone scanned this directly from the book itself, because I can see just faintly through it the stuff that's on the next page as well. So some of these names may be familiar to people, like Sandy Peterson. Okay, and as we go through, you'll see that many of the rules are similar to Call of Cthulhu. They've got the same, as they call it, basic role-playing system. There's table of contents, introduction, creating an adventurer, game system, combat skills, the world, blank adventurer sheet. And the good old thing, RuneQuest questions. They should consult, players should consult their game master. Game masters should use their best judgment. Game masters who are confronted with questions impossible to resolve can write to Chaosium. So it's just the good old days where you type up or write a little letter to the game company and send it in with your questions. Don't get so much of that nowadays. Now you've got forums and things. This is one of the first ones that actually defines what a role-playing game is. This is something that Bill and I have discussed before, that the first RPGs didn't bother mentioning to you what it was. They just figured you'd figured it out for yourself. But this one, published a bit later on, it was the 1980s when they started writing about what a role-playing game was. I think we all know what role-playing games are. That's why we're here. And we know what a game master is and what a player is.
I'm sorry, what game? I'm sorry, a what game?
Role-playing game.
You said you said
life and death. There you go. Your character has to be able to die for it to be a worthwhile game, is what they tell us there. Danger is a common theme in an adventurer's life. There is satisfaction in non-hazardous occupations, and you are urged to create non-combative characters as time allows. But role-playing sharpest spice is the testing of your adventurers by life or death situations. Yeah, so none of this later editions of D&D nonsense. You want to be able to die.
Right. I have Avalon Hill's headquarters if anyone would actually care to see it as it appears now. It's
sure.
Put it up on screen.
Yeah. They're the historic Avalon Hill, and if we zoom in, we see that employees only, others report to the office. So there's
does it say on the map what the business now is?
You know what? It just took me straight to the street view, so I don't know what's out here facing the road. Someone in the comments said it was a Del Taco, but I don't. I feel like this is probably not a Del Taco nor a location that you would want to stop at a Del Taco.
Yeah, it's looking a wee bit run down there.
Yeah, this is.
That might be a taco place there, right?
No, this is a used car. This is a used car lot converted out of an old garage. Okay. So there you go, folks. We've journeyed to the magical world of the headquarters of many war games is behind this garage.
The used car lot.
Yes.
There's no memorial plaque to them there.
Nope. Jimmy
says, looks like the back of a jail.
Yeah.
Well, it's an appropriate place for role-playing gamers to be.
Indeed.
Given what their player characters do.
It's definitely a role-playing game adventure.
I've been to Lake Geneva, and I've seen where TSR was headquartered for a long time before they really started to show off the glitz in the 90s, in the early 90s. And it was not much different than what we just saw of Avalon Hill. So, yeah. I'm sorry, Kyle, please continue.
Very glamorous. Okay. So far we've got the standard stuff in role-playing games. Now, this is something that has disappeared from a lot of role-playing games. The example character. So in the earlier editions of RuneQuest, they had Rorik the Viking as the example character. And in this one, they've got Cormac the Pict. And the example character is a really great way, I think, to illustrate the rules without having to do a lot of if-then statements in the rules and make it this tedious thing to read. And it's got a little story, and it's a way to evoke the game world and inspire players and game masters both, I think. So I like the example characters, particularly when the writers are smart enough to make it the same character throughout the whole player book.
Mm-hmm.
In this book, you'll frequently find rule examples starring Cormac the Pict, Signy the Vandal, Churchak the Scythian, or Nicholas of Byzantium. These personalities illustrate the way that the rules are used and incidentally reveal how some more or less ordinary adventurers progress or don't progress in actual situations. Use these examples as a game master to learn how to portray a situation in a RuneQuest game or how to react as a player to the situations in which the game master presents. So they're not just showing the rules, but they're showing you how to play. Mostly set in fantasy Europe. Okay, player's book. And then there's their example map of Europe. The way it got drawn by people of that era. Ancient map of the Western world. It wasn't always, a perfect map. And also, no hexes, man. I'm not happy. Anyway, creating an adventurer.
How can we hex crawl with no hexes?
I came here for the hex crawl.
Cormac Saga. Cormac is a ruddy 23-year-old male Pict from the cold hills of Caledonia, a place commonly called Pictland. He was raised among a tribe of primitive hunter-gatherers, and Cormac was taught the skills of a hunter. All right, so it's adventuring, introducing a character sheet. All right, so in RuneQuest, what you do is you choose your culture, and then you roll your culture, and then your profession. So you've got primitive, nomad, barbarian, and civilized. And then within those, and then you roll up your stats as well. Within those cultures, there's different occupations. So for example, primitives just get fisher, hunter, or shaman. That's it. They're primitive after all. Okay. And then nomads get crafter, herder, hunter, noble, shaman, or warrior. And then barbarians get crafter, entertainer, farmer, fisher, herder, hunter, noble, priest, or warrior. And then the civilized ones get adept, sorcerer, crafter, entertainer, farmer, healer, herder, merchant, noble, priest, sailor, scribe, soldier, or thief. However, note that because it's a skill-based system, not a class-based system, your occupation just says what your starting skills will be. You can get any skill you like later on that you can use that you use in play, you'll get better, or you get someone to teach you it, you'll get better. But it just determines what your starting skills are. So you're not tied to it. So this is one of the earlier skill-based games, and that's how they chose to handle it. A bit like Traveller does, where your character can get any skill, but the Traveller tends to be a bit more fixed in what you end up with because it's harder to get new skills. RuneQuest makes it relatively easier to get more skills, and that's because of the granularity of it. So, Traveller, you're rolling 2d6 and you're adding 1, 2, or 3 or whatever, whereas RuneQuest, it's percentile. So you add if you go from having 20% ability to 25% ability, it's not this huge game-changing thing the way it might be in Traveller for you to get a new skill. So it's a bit more freedom in that regard. Any comments so far, guys?
I'm keen to see how this works. Like I was saying, I've had a lot of experience with creating Chaosium characters, so Call of Cthulhu characters with Chaosium. So I'm keen to see how, or if at all, my knowledge goes over to this. Well, it'll be Lord Coron creating it, the character, but just the same.
Yeah. Well, you both can. So
Yeah, of course. I'm digging the Howardian like feel of the setting though in the game.
Yeah, it does have a. We were kind of jiving about that in the comments a little bit. That it does. This has a very Howard feel with their approach to Europe. You know, you got Picts and barbarians and so on.
Timely as I just started rereading too.
Yeah, it's why I like this edition. I'm not that fond of Glorantha with its strange lizard dudes and ducks and all that sort of nonsense. It's more high fantasy. I'm more fond of low fantasy myself, and or just allowing each game master to determine their own campaign world, what it'll be like. Because you can have a completely viable campaign of this with everybody using magic or with nobody using magic, set in ancient Greece, set in ancient Japan, or set in the Middle Ages Europe or whatever you like. And that's shown by Deluxe RuneQuest. It had a number of splat books out of Vikings and Normans and that sort of stuff. They put a number of books out that fleshed the game out. I've got a couple floating around, but I didn't pick them up for the show. Anyway, so roll 1d8 for your cultures, guys.
All right. Well, I'm going to use DD dice on screen here because I'm like that. And I got
get yourself a piece of paper or a TXT file and start scribbling away.
All right. So for culture, I got a 6. Kyle, what does a 6 give us?
You're a barbarian.
A barbarian.
How about you, Corion?
Broadsword.
I got a 7.
7. Okay. So,
civilized and barbarian.
You're civilized. Well, I don't know. You seem more civilized than Bill anyway, so. Okay.
Most people do.
Adventurer characteristics. Okay. So you determine characteristics by rolling 3d6 for everything except intelligence and size, which are 2d6 plus 6. So strength, 3d6. Each of you roll 3d6.
I am an average thewed barbarian. I have a strength of 11.
Mm-hmm. And how about you, Corian?
If the weedy city dweller has more strength than I do, I don't know how I'll deal with that. Corian, what you got?
Can you send me your dice roller?
Yes.
I'm trying to roll this on a calculator, and it's not going my way.
I will.
You not have some physical dice in your possession, don't you? Carry with them with you always.
I 3 minutes before this started.
Okay, I knew a gamer. I knew a gamer who carried a dice bag with him always, just in case. Like he carried it to work and everything, just in case he met a gamer at work.
I'm ashamed. It should be within my reach. I'm near my D&D books too.
All right. Coron, the link is right there in the backroom chat. Oh no, you are stronger than me. Damn it. You got a strength of 16. I'm picturing the guy who goes around punching milk horses and
all right. Constitution, 3d6.
Let's see. So I got a 14. Oh no, that's Coron. I got a 10.
Ooh.
Okay. And size is 2d6 plus 6.
So size 12.
Size 12.
13.
It's basically your weight in stone. It's like multiply that by 14 pounds, and that's your weight. And then there's intelligence, which is also 2d6 plus 6.
8.
14.
Yep. The civilized guy is pretty big and solid.
I
This is
know.
a little
I'm
weird.
clocking in more like Malak the Thief from Conan the Destroyer here.
Power. This characteristic measures an adventurer's life force. Power represents an integration of an adventurer with his universe. High power shows great harmony with life. Low power shows proportionally less. High power makes hiding harder for the possessor because the aura cast by higher power tends to draw the attention of living creatures. It's like someone with high charisma trying to hide. You walk in the room and everyone notices you. I hide in shadows.
Mane of golden hair flapping in the breeze.
Yeah. Related to the concept of charisma or animal magnetism, power also indicates a character's ability to lead. So it's your magic stat, but it's also your charisma, which is kind of a funky melding of ideas, I think.
Yeah,
Okay.
it kind of works.
3d6.
Power, I got a 10.
I got a 12.
Okay. Dexterity is also 3d6.
There
13.
you go.
Okay. And then lastly, there's appearance. The appearance characteristic quantifies an adventurer's physical attractiveness to other members of the same species. This subjective measurement measures how intriguing or how handsome or beautiful the individual is. A high human apparating, for instance, cuts no ice with other intelligent species. A troll would judge your human adventurer from a trollish point of view. That runty little creature has lips which cover its tusks. Disgusting. App may be raised in many ways. Good grooming may increase it a point or two.
I am Malak, man. Look at this.
Malak would have higher dex, wouldn't he?
I mean, I got a Dex 13, so and that's higher than Koron's.
Okay. How about your appearance then?
16.
16.
Yeah.
I'll let him do the
Koron's-
talk.
I like his dice. I like Corin's dice. All right. So that's the characteristics. They give the example, Cormac, who's got good strength and appearance. All right. So those are the attributes. There's magic points, which is just equal to your current power. And there's fatigue points, which is equal to your current constitution. So there's a character sheet, but we'll get into that later. Now, is hit points. Now, this is where we get into the weeds of what the writers considered to be realistic combat.
We're
So
doing that.
total hit points. Total hit points equal the average of your character's size plus your constitution. So write that down. Your size plus your constitution divided by 2. Rounding fractions up. So 0.5 goes up to the next integer.
I have 11 hit points.
Okay. How about you, Corey?
Round up 14.
14. Okay. Now, it says further from combat or other physical contact, your adventurer may take damage to separate parts of their body, amounts much, which must be entered on the adventurer sheet.
Woo!
So you
Here we go.
All right. So you've got hit location. So it depends on your total hit points. So what's your total hit points between 10 and 12, isn't it, Bill?
Yeah, I have 11 hit points.
All right. So each leg and your abdomen have got 4 hit points. Your chest has got 5. Each arm has got 3, and your head has got 4. And what was yours, Corian? It's between 13 and 15, wasn't it?
Yeah. So I got
Yeah.
that.
So you've got each leg has got 5. Your abdomen has got 5 hit points as well. Your size, your protruding abdomen, or your abs of steel, depending on how you want to look at it. Your chest has got 6. Your big pecs could take it. Each arm has got 4, and your head has got 5. Your
Perfect.
your large Ben Affleck style head. He does have a large head, doesn't he?
Just an extra on Troy right now.
All right. So yeah, the basically when you take, as you'll see later in the combat, when you take damage to that particular location more than that hit point, then that particular location becomes useless. If that's your chest or head, then you pass out. If it's your leg or something, then you fall over. And if you get to the negative of that, it's permanently whacked. So like if you got 4 hit points in one leg and you take 8 hit points of damage to it, that just cuts it right off.
Brutal.
Yeah.
Yikes.
Like I said, it comes from the author's extensive experience in hand-to-hand combat. I think they mean in simulated hand-to-hand combat.
Yeah.
I don't think he was actually going around having sword fights with people.
Maybe it's just interviewing people.
No,
Probably.
these were they were SCA guys, the Society of Creative Anachronism guys.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, they were those guys. So they went around boffing each other with foam swords and stuff. Okay. Right, now the occupation table as well. We don't need the primitive ones. Oh, there's also a damage modifier. When an adventurer makes a successful attack with thrown or melee weapon, his or her damage modifier is also rolled. To find their damage modifier, total your adventurer's strength plus size. So if you're really big and strong, you might do extra damage. Do your strength and size add up to 25 to 32 or 25 or more?
Strength plus size. I know mine don't.
Okay, so you don't get any modifier. How about you?
I got a 29 on that.
Okay, so you get plus 1d4 on damage. Now, this is how they handle initiative. It's called strike ranks. To realistically simulate fantasy world combat, I love that phrase. To realistically simulate fantasy world combat. Realistic fantasy. Okay.
That is
RuneQuest weaves together the dexterity and size of adventurers with the size of game weapons and the number of magic points used to cast particular spells. The product of each individual calculation, I think they mean sum, determines the melee round strike rank upon which the weapon and spell can be used. A melee round consists of 10 strike ranks, always counted out in order from 1 to 10. The lower the number of the melee round strike rank, during which your adventurer can use a weapon, the sooner in each round of combat they can attack. That'll become so missile weapons. Your strike rank is your dex strike rank, and then there's a melee one. So for those with dex of 10 to 15, your dex strike rank is 3. And then there's melee is the dex plus the size strike rank. So what you guys have both got size 10 to 15, haven't you?
Yes, I'm size 12.
Yeah, so you've got a dex plus size, so that'll be 3 plus 2. Dex plus size strike rank modifier will be 5. So you both go at about the same time.
Okay.
But so then it will depend on your weapons.
And while we're talking about combat, I do want to point something out real quick because, of course, this is a realistic game. They said so, and we have to consider all realism. And so let me see here, share, and yes, in Chaosium's RuneQuest, a character cutting both arms off a character will kill a character with con 20, but not a character with con 5. Very realistic.
I'm not sure that's correct, but anyway.
And A 30-minute RuneQuest battle involving 6,000 armored experienced warriors using great axes. 150 men will decapitate themselves, and another 600 will chop off their own arms or legs. Highly realistic game, guys.
That's correct, because there's fumbles.
Right.
Fumbles. I mean, there's it's like Jeffrey Ent's threefold game theory: retro, stupid, and pretentious. One of the essence of stupid rules is that there has to be fumble tables. They have to be
right.
tables. Otherwise, it's just not stupid. Anything which, where there's rolling the dice and everyone starts laughing, it's the game's got some element of stupid.
Yes.
Becomes the comedy game. You need the seriousness.
Yeah. All right. So they're going. There's skill modifiers. All right. Now, so this is one of the systems where they front load the complexity of character generation. So it's because you've just got percentile rolls in play. Your skill is 30%, roll under 30, you succeed. Oh, you got a bonus of 20% in this instance, so roll under 50. Oh, you got a negative of 10% in this instance, so roll under 20. So that's pretty simple in play. They front load the complexity rather than they don't have the complexity of point buy in that, but they do have the complexity of your different stats will help this or that skill category. So skill groups or categories are made up of skills which are influenced by the same characteristic or set of characteristics. There are 7 categories of skills in RuneQuest. So there's agility skills, physical skills which require general bodily effort: boat, climb, dodge, jump, all parries, ride, swim, throw. Communication skills. So it's fast talk, orate, sing, speak own language, speak other languages, and so on. Now, so the skill category modifiers. So this acts as a base thing. So even if you don't buy any skill ranks at all in it, you've still at least got that base from your attributes, as you'll see. Communication. So there's a primary influence, 1 percentile to the modifier for each point of the characteristic over 10, and subtract 1 percentile for each characteristic point below 10. And then there's a secondary influence where it's 1 for each 2 points over 10 and subtract 1 for every 2 below 10. And then there's a negative influence, which is usually only size or appearance. Anyway, so communication skills. Intelligence is primary and power and appearance is secondary. So look at your intelligence over 10, if any, and that gives you a +1, and your power and your appearance over 10, and for each 2 over 10, that gives you a +1 as well. So you guys figure that out.
All right.
So they give the example: Cormac's intelligence of 14 gives him +4. His power of 12 gives him +1. And his appearance of 13 gives him +2, for a total modifier of +7 percentiles. That's their example.
Okay. Well, I've got +2.
So
Okay.
I have +12. Intelligence 14, power 12, appearance 16.
Well, no, because the power and the appearance is secondary.
Oh,
so you only get 1 bonus for each 2 points.
Oh, for each 2 points. So that's 1. That's 2 points. So 6. I have 6. Total.
So there's a primary and a secondary. So that's communications. All right.
So I got
Agility. The primary is dex. Okay, so how much dex have you got above 10, if any?
3. Myself.
Okay. Strength is secondary. So how many double points of strength have you got over 10?
1.
So that becomes 4. Size is a negative. So your size over 10?
My size is 8.
8. So that's actually +2.
I get a 0.
Okay. So those different ones add together. See, so agility, it's easier to be agile if you're small. than if you're big. It's hard to be agile if you're like size 20. You're 20 stone guy. Much easier to be agile if you're an 8 stone guy. Okay, knowledge skills modifier. There's just intelligence as primary. There's the magical skills modifier. Both intelligence and power are primary. So number of points of intelligence and power over 10 gives you a +1. And then the dex is secondary. So each 2 points over 10 gives you a +1.
Okay, just so we're clear about something, when you say over 10, you mean for each of them, not them added together, right?
Yeah, for each of them, yeah.
All right. So none. Magical skill modifier for me is none.
I got +6, no worries.
Okay. Manipulation skills modifier. Intelligence and dex are primary. So each point over 10 for each of them gives you a +1 for manipulation.
I got 3 on that.
And then strength is secondary. So each 2 points of strength over 10 gives you a +1.
Yep, that's a total of 3 for me.
That's manipulation skills. All right. Then there's stealth. So dex is primary. So each point of dex over 1, over 10 gives you +1. And size and power are negative. So each point of size or power over 10 gives you a -1.
So I have a
It's hard to be stealthy.
I have a total stealth of 1 because I'm a tall fellow.
That's 9 higher than me.
So yeah, so we got finally a negative for all his good stats.
You're too big to be a thief.
I'm not a thief. You're the thief.
He might be a thief. It depends. You haven't rolled up occupation yet.
That's right.
Skills category modifiers. Yeah.
Now, the Dave said something I disagree with. He said, I don't think you can make a system that also captures the fear of being cut down in combat. Tongue in cheek, any RPG with combat, it has the fear of being cut down in combat in it. But seriously, Twilight 2000 has the cool stat. That is your coolness under fire. And there are certain things that will happen in combat that will cause your character to lock up and not be able to do anything other than a very limited range of things. So there actually is you can get suppressed in Twilight 2000, at least the first edition. But anyway, to continue.
And in the conflict RPG that I wrote, when we've discussed the rules, you see it's based on similar concepts, but it came from an article where a guy was talking about how people will freeze up in combat and just repeat their last action and that sort of thing. And he had rules for that, but I thought that would, you're having to roll your cool or whatever every combat round would be annoying, and also finding yourself being able to do nothing would annoy players as well. So I just abstracted it into a stat called readiness, which is between 0 and +3. And that's how many combat actions you get in a round. If you are wounded, you lose 1 readiness. And if you are suppressed, you come under automatic fire, or 3 or more people firing single shots at you or throwing things at you, you're suppressed, you lose 1 readiness as well. So
that is correct. That is correct. We have a question from Knickknack95. Came to the stream late. Which edition of RuneQuest are we reading? This is a second, Kyle.
No, it's Deluxe RuneQuest, as they call it, which is the 3rd edition.
Third, okay. So there you go, Knickknack, 3rd edition.
All right, so we're going to see what occupation your barbarian is, Bill. D100.
D100. Let's see here. Let me do this real quick so everyone we can see the dice together. D100. We get that. 80. 80.
Is going to be a herder.
All right. A herder.
All right, now I can never remember how you determine it. So you get a certain number of skills per year of being an adventurer, or per year of your background thing.
Alrighty.
But it doesn't say how many you get. Anyway, we just called an arbitrary 10 years. All right. Herder, barbarian herder. These people live by tending animals on foot or while mounted. Though herders may actually annually move between lowlands and uplands, the routes and pastures are well marked. Herd stock include cattle, horses, sheep, and goats, plus more exotic creatures from fantasy. The hippogriff herder. Skills: climb ×2, jump ×1, throw ×2, etc. So that means each year that you were a herder, you get that many points of percent. All right, so you get 20 points of climb 20%.
Okay.
Jump 10%.
Okay.
Throw 20%. First aid 30%.
All right.
Plant law 30%. Animal law 50%.
Okay.
World law 30%.
Alrighty.
Listen 20%.
Okay.
Scan 40.
Okay.
Search 10.
All right.
And you get ceremony 10.
Okay.
Fist attack 10%.
Okay.
Dagger attack 10.
All right.
Some missile weapon 30%. It's unspecified at this stage. A one-handed weapon 20%. And either shield, parry, or dodge, your choice, 20%.
Dodge, I think.
Okay. To determine whether your adventurer knows spirit or divine magic, roll D100. All right, so just roll D100.
Alrighty. 17.
So spirit magic, you get 1d3 -1 points of spells after you reach 15 years of age. So 1d3 -1.
One spell.
Okay, one point of spell. We'll get to that later. Plus 1 point of spells for each succeeding 10 years or fraction thereof. So you get another point for another 10 years.
All right.
Okay, you've equipment. You got linen and wool clothing, cultural weapons, knife, hatchet, pack, 50 meters of rope, water skins, and herd animals worth 120 pennies. Fire maker, staff, appropriate missile weapon. Only problem with these old scans, can't highlight text. Alrighty, let's see about our civilized chap.
All right. So what unfortunate will I be?
Yeah. So they, by the way, they suggest 2 possible experience systems, and we're using one of them. The one is, they call it the quick one, where you just get 30 percentiles for every year that they're older than 15. You just determine by choice or die how many years older they are, and they just get 30 percentiles of their choice. You still have to decide their culture though, but you don't decide their occupation. And then the experience by occupation is what we're doing when we look through it. Experience by, where it's a quick experience system, they call it quick, but it's not necessarily quick, because as we've discussed before, every time a player has to make a choice, that slows things down. And even with this level of complexity, looking things up is still quicker than players making choices. Later on, it's a bit different. If the player's more experienced, they might sort of just go boom, boom, boom. Yep, I'll put it in all in this, and so on. And the game master has to trust the player not to abuse it, so they just end up with 100% sword skill when they first come out, and then nothing else. Okay, experience by occupation. Where's our civilized ones? All right, civilized, D100. What's your occupation?
Okay, let's see. 76.
76 is a herder. Civilized herder.
We're clearly just trying to sell some cattle.
Yeah. Well, we could become adventurers who start fights in the tavern and steal from the merchants and that sort of thing. Murder herders.
Herders live by tending animals, whether on foot or mounted. Civilized herders may not own the animals they tend. Most of the district's horses, sheep, etc. will be marked and gathered into a single herd, managed full-time by a herder. That's the difference between a civilized and a barbarian herder. The barbarian owns his own animals. The civilized one looks after somebody else's. Civilized, you call yourself civilized, but you're a peasant.
With civilization came corruption.
Civilization, ancient and wicked.
Herded stock could also include cattle, goats, and more exotic creatures from fantasy. Skills. It can be a very similar list. Climb 20%. Jump 20%. Throw 20%. First aid 20%. Animal law 50%. Human law 10%. World law 30%. Now, this is where we start getting different. The barbarian herder didn't have this one. It didn't have human law, but this is where it starts to really get different. Devise.
Ooh.
20%. Listen. 30%. Scan. 30%. Search. 10%. Fist attack. 20%. Dagger attack. 10%. Missile weapon. 20%. One-handed weapon attack. 10%. And either parry or dodge. It's parry with a particular weapon, or the generic dodge, 10%.
Parry.
Okay, so you roll D100 for which kind of magic you have. There's two kinds. There's divine magic and sorcery.
80.
Sorcery.
Yes.
Your adventurer receives 1d3 minus 1 sorcery spells at age 15, plus 1 additional sorcery spell for every 5 years or fraction thereafter. So roll 1d3 minus 1.
So 2. I got 1.
1, okay. And then 1 additional sorcery spell for every 5 years or fraction thereafter. So it's another 2. So you'll have 3 sorcery spells.
Perfect.
He also receives intensity or ceremony or world law. So intensity 10%.
Okay.
Enchant 10%. And then there'll be 20% of spells. So you'll have the spells, but you'll have a certain skill level in the spells.
Okay.
And you'll spread that 20% of spells amongst the spells that you have. Equipment. Herd animals worth 100 pennies, or an individual animal worth 100 pennies. The one cow that you own at the herd. That's my cow. Look after it. Linen and wool clothing. Knife, appropriate missile weapon, appropriate one-handed weapon, sack, fire maker, and tinder. 50 meters of rope. 10 pennies in coin. Okay, now, going back to the skills, because there's those different categories of skill bonuses, remember. So you've got to do this to figure out. It's much easier when you've got a regular character sheet. I don't know of any form fillable ones online, but you can look up, let's see, RuneQuest Deluxe character sheet. First result is Temu, of course.
Yeah. I ordered a new character sheet on Temu.com, and all I got was this root kit installed on my PC. I keep clicking the PDF, and my computer just gets slower and slower and slower. Now I'm apparently officially an embassy of the People's Republic of China.
Oh, this one claims it does limited calculations here. I'll give you guys a link. Post that up in the private chat. And for those following along at home, post that link to Bill's thing. Yeah. That seems to do limited calculations. So if you put your stats and your skills in, that should give you guys the appropriate numbers.
Okay.
So don't worry about social class, but you've got so culture is just barbarian or civilized, and then your occupations is obvious. That's herder, and then there's your stats. Current original, so you can put all those sorts of things in. Put all those various ones in.
All right, I am doing that thing.
All right, you guys go through and do that, and then we'll have a look further on. So those various like manipulation, agility, and everything bonuses add in.
All right.
More of Cormac's saga.
Now, one thing I did find when I was looking online, because I was like, Kyle, we're going to talk about RuneQuest tonight. All of the versions of RuneQuest are actually available on DriveThruRPG. So whatever flavor of RuneQuest you're after, they have them. This is not like some weirdo unobtainium. Like, let's talk about a system that none of you people can buy, as I occasionally do. This is actually something that you can get today. You can get tonight and start your adventures in Glorantha or wherever.
Yeah, this is one of the good things about it. I mean, they don't seem to be terribly great with the SRD to publish your own material or whatever. But right. I mean, most of it would be pretty well covered by the old doctrine of merger, the copyright idea that there are only so many ways to express the same idea. You can't copyright the words and then play proceeds clockwise around the table, because that's half of the games out there. So
right.
So concepts like having skills and then rating them in percentile levels and everything, you can't really copyright. So I'd be confident in putting out my own material, whether for sale or not, but I don't know. But publishing things, I don't think there's going to be any major drama. And as you say, the various editions are available, and percentile skills, they have the advantage. They're pretty intuitively obvious. It could be, like I said, they front loaded the complexity in the character use here, especially since, remember, your attributes can change later on, your stats can change, so that would change the bonuses. But that's only going to make a % or two difference here or there to your abilities, unless something really dramatic happens. But yeah, so in play, you've just got the percentile, and you roll under the skill or the skill with a bonus or a malus, and you succeed for the most part. Combat's a little bit more complicated, but that's usual for role-playing games. The non-combat stuff is resolved easily. The combat stuff has a bit more complexity. Yeah, Michael said, sweet character sheet. Now rewind so we can build along. Yeah, probably should have done that. People could roll along as I went along at home. But we did what we did. Should have thought to look for it first. Anyway, so there's the basic character generation. Okay, and now there's the magic. Magic's a bit more complicated because they've got the systems of spirit magic, divine magic, and sorcery and that. So we might get into that another time. But suffice to say that the magic is not terribly big in RuneQuest. It's not terribly dramatic. You're not throwing fireballs that kill 100 guys or whatever.
Yeah, somebody commented that the spell system in Call of Cthulhu and the spell system in RuneQuest are close enough that Call of Cthulhu spells can be ported over into RuneQuest. And if that's the case, yeah, we're not going to be Six-Gun Sally with magic missiles and throwing fireballs and lightning bolts and raising dead by the time we get a few piles of dragon's gold. That's not this.
Yeah. It's fairly kind of grounded. So they give you examples like Cormac the Pict is hunting on the Scottish moors when his player makes a skill roll for Cormac's scan skill. The player rolls a 27, safely below Cormac's 53% skill. Cormac therefore discovers that several clan enemies are following him. Cormac is brave but not foolish, so he attempts to hide. He has a 28% hide ability, and modifiers for the brushy terrain also help him. His player rolls 18. Cormac watches from the brush while his enemies file past. Excuse me. This is and then they talk about skill versus skill. So the enemy tribesmen decide to search the thick gorge in which Cormac successfully hid with a skill of 28%. The tribesman who searches Cormac's specific area has a 78% search skill, so his chance of finding Cormac is 50%. You just subtract one from the other. His player may attempt to make this roll each melee round until succeeding, thereby finding the lurking Cormac. But the leader of the band is convinced that Cormac is still running and orders the search suspended after a minute or two. the men move away, and Cormac breathes easier. So in this case, it would mean that if your hide skill is greater than his search skill, he'll literally never find you. So unless he gets a critical success, I suppose. But yeah. And then they have a little chart which gives you critical success chances, which they're essentially like 50% skill gives you a 3% chance of critical success, 100% skill gives you a 5% chance of critical success, and inversely with a fumble. What we used to do when we played RuneQuest to simplify that, so we didn't have to, because otherwise you'd have to write down your chances of each in each case. Mm-hmm. There's also special success as well. There's critical success, special success, and fumble. We did away with the special success, and we just said, if you succeed and you roll doubles, it's a critical. If you fail and you roll doubles, it's a fumble. And it gave pretty much the same chances of it happening, because if you got 50% skill, there's 4 possible results of having a fumble, so that it becomes 4% chance. If you've got 100% skill, there's 10 possible results of it having a double, so it's a 10% skill. So it overstayed the chance of critical success, but it also overstayed the chance of a fumble. So it meant 10% of all results were like that, but it saved us looking up charts, and we took a larger chance of something dramatic happening as being more exciting than having a smaller chance of something dramatic happening and having to look up a chart. So that's what we did. But I mean, that's by no means the official rule. That's just what we did. They give the example of a critical success or failure. As Cormac edges along the rim of a cliff, the game master calls for a roll by the player of Cormac's dex times 5 as a percentage. The roll succeeds, but after a few minutes, Cormac encounters wet, slippery rock, and the game master calls for another roll, this time dex times 3 to reflect the difficult surface. The roll fails, Cormac teeters at the brink, but the game master calls for a roll of power times 4 to see if Cormac clutches a projecting root. Power gets used as a luck kind of mechanic. This roll succeeds, and Cormac pulls himself up to safety. That's a lot of dice rolls just to walk along the ledge. It's pretty mean GM, but
it is. I just say versus paralysis. If you fail, you fall.
Yeah. Then they've got resistance chart, the person's object factor, blah, 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 and then what it has. So, like if you're using strength against strength, for example, like say you two guys arm wrestle. What's your strength, Bill?
Strength is 11.
11. So you're the active one on this chart. Your strength 11. And what's yours, Corian?
16.
16. So we go past, that's 16. So Bill's got 25%. So he'll win 25% of arm wrestles, according to this.
Okay.
So give you 3-to-1 odds. So that's how you resolve like stat versus stat. And of course, you can give inanimate object stats and so on. That's their resistance table. They give examples. Strength against size. An adventurer attempting to lift an object must overcome the size of the object with his strength on the resistance table. Strength against strength. Potency of a potion or whatever against con or hit points. Diseases and poisons are measured in potency, and the potency of the attacker is matched against the con or hit points of the target on the resistance table to determine the effects. Now, improvement, leveling up. Okay, so every time you use the skill during a game session, you tick the little box next to that skill on the adventurer sheet. After the adventurer, or when the game master rules that the adventurers have had time to think about what has happened, generally a game week suffices for the lessons learned to have sunk into the adventurer's subconsciousness, then a player may be allowed to make an experience roll for each check on his adventurer sheet. Remember, only skills which have experience check boxes next to their percentiles can be increased in this manner. You roll a D100. If the result is higher than the adventurer's current percentage for that skill, the experience roll succeeds. Add the appropriate skills category modifier to the roll before determining whether the experience roll succeeded. Okay, so while chasing a magnificent stag several years later, Cormac the Pick must climb a sheer cliff. He succeeds using his climb skill of 54%. The Game Master agrees that the climb was stressful and that Cormac's player should put an experience check in the box next to Cormac's climb skill. The next time experience rolls are allowed, Cormac's player tries to roll more than 54 on D100. He rolls 67. Cormac's agility bonus of 0% doesn't affect the result, and the experience roll succeeds. So if you increase by experience like that, you then add 1d6 percentiles to the skill. So it's diminishing returns. So if your skill's 20%, it's easy to roll over and improve. If your skill's 90%, it's hard to roll over and improve.
Again, very Call of Cthulhu-like. They're built on basically the same foundation. I think there's a lot, even if you've never played RuneQuest, guys, you will find a lot of similarities if you've played Call of Cthulhu, particularly in the training up of your skills. You just keep track of which one you used and then do as said.
They just go into more detail in combat in this. So you've got hit locations. You've got arms and legs and stuff. You've got hit locations, and what was I going to say? Yeah, you've got hit locations and strike ranks as well, because they expect more combat than Cthulhu. Cthulhu isn't about.
Yeah, if the guns come out in Call of Cthulhu, something has gone wrong.
Yeah. Now, you can also pay for skill training, though when you do skill training, so it's the same thing, you roll above your current skill after a period, but you get a 1d6 minus 2 training increase roll for your adventurer. So it's possible that you learn nothing or even lose ground.
So you can actually untrain yourself by a bit if you screw up in school, as it were.
Yes. However, school is not as lethal. So adventuring experience, if you survive, you will get better. Training in school, you will definitely survive, and you may get better. You may not get better, and you may stay the same. Or it may get worse. So that's the trade-off. Because otherwise, adventurers would just stay in school forever.
Exactly. And that's why you take on the Appalachian adventurer, right? I mean, you're not gonna sit around campus all the time. You got to go out there and grab some experience points. Yeah, there might be something on the other end of it that wants to grab you, but hey, that's better than listening to Professor Fuddy Duddy try and tell you how to read that magic book, right?
Mm-hmm.
At least that's my take on it.
Yeah. So and going to school can actually make you dumber. But experience will go. But on the other hand, experience may kill you. So you can increase your characteristics as well over time, but it takes a lot of time. Then they go into movement rates. Again, the usual role-playing game thing of assuming a rather generous movement rate. Hiking, 50 kilometers a day. That's 30 miles, guys. No. No. Sorry.
No. In my fit years, I mean, I could do 8-10 kilometers in a day. If I was walking or running for exercise or something, but that was a minute or two ago. I mean, I was telling Kyle.
Well, they say over a 10-hour day. The issue isn't so much doing 30 miles in one day as then getting up the next day and doing it again. Yeah. That's the real issue.
I mean, if I absolutely had to, if it was like, well, you do this or you die of dehydration or something like that. Yeah, absolutely. And the next day, I'd be like a newborn giraffe trying to stand up. You know, I'd be, I'd be trembling all over the place.
Yeah, Connect says even hardcore hikers can handle maybe 15 max and that. Look, there's some super fit individuals out there, you know, that you know, do the Appalachian Trail in 5 minutes or something. But they're remarkable individuals. They're the people with, you know, 18 con, whatever. So, and they usually have support teams. You know, it's like there's a Melbourne to Sydney foot race. And there are people who follow along behind them in cars and bring them food and stuff. You know, if you have to carry everything on your back, then you know, it's very different. So I guess it was like the author's real experience in hand-to-hand combat. It was their real experience hiking. All right, so you can see here humanoid hit location, melee. You roll a d20 for hit locations in combat, and then there's the hit points. They talk about how the hit points get spread out. Damage to equal or in excess of hit points. Leg, the limb is useless. The adventurer will fall, unable to do anything else that melee round. He may fight from the ground during following melee rounds. Disadvantages of fighting from the ground are explained in the combat chapter. He's lying on the ground, flailing his sword around.
Well, I mean, hey, there's rules for prone in AD&D. Maybe they're not that granular, but so to jump ahead just a little bit, Kyle. I myself, and maybe you guys in the audience, Lord Corion, if you have any thoughts on this, I'd love to hear them. But you know, I tend to gauge a fantasy role-playing game in terms of how many kobolds can I hack down in a single round or two of combat. Is that a metric that applies well to RuneQuest, or are we getting towards Rolemaster kind of territory with you know, well, let's see. Well, first we roll to attack, add your offensive bonus, subtract your defensive bonus. How do it go, Kyle?
Well, the thing is that since it's not a level-based system, there's more kind of clustering of abilities. So, you know, your kobold might only have strength and size of 4 or something, but that's still closer to your average human of strength and size of 10 or 12 than it would be your, you know, 1-1 hit die kobold is to a level 3 fighter. You know what I mean? So because it's not leveled and you've just got this percentile thing, there's a lot more kind of clustering, a lot closer together. So you can't cut through quite as many kobolds with quite as much gay abandon as you would in D&D. Does that make sense?
It does. It does make sense, and I'm sure as we explore this, you know, in other sessions, we should have, if the audience wants to. This is fascinating to me, but I'm sure
it's we're going to. Maybe your hit points don't go up either.
Right.
I mean, you can wear armor, but your hit points don't go up.
But
so,
just as long as
so as an example, like if your two characters were to have a fist fight, you've both got the same strike rank. Okay. And if you're both using fists, so you got fist attack versus dodge. Okay, so you both go at the same time. So what's your fist attack, Bill?
My fist attack. Let's see. Let me get over there. I still don't have everything in my character sheet yet. Fist attack. It is 10, but it's based on something else. So I know from other.
Well, put in your attributes, and it should calculate the bonuses.
Yeah. So fist attack. Let's see. Weapon attack. Where is that? That's, let's see, communication, weapon attack bonus, manipulation. Come on. I put my strength in. Strength of 11.
Put all
no,
your stats. Just put all your stats in.
Yeah, I've done that. I've done that, and I'm looking. My overall attack bonus is minus 25%, so it ain't good.
Well, it should have calculated it for you.
I don't think the calculations are working right because I've been trying to do this a couple times and none of this numbers adds up right.
Okay,
Yeah.
so let's go back and
because my bare fist, my fist attack stat when we went through Operation Herder was 10%.
Yeah,
and mine was 20.
Yeah,
you're gonna beat the daylights out of me, man.
I'm sure it's based off agility, and then you'll beat the crap out of me.
All right, so let's find those skill bonuses. Those modifiers. Skill category modifiers. All right, so the skill categories. All parries are agility, and all weapon attacks are manipulation. All right, so the agility one, the primary is Dex. So 1 point for each point of Dex above 10. The secondary is Strength. So 1 point for each 2 points above 10. And then size is negative. 1 point for each size point below 10. So you're more agile if you're smaller, you're less agile if you're bigger.
All right, so then my total is 5.
So that's your parry and your dodge. Your parry and your dodge will be influenced by your agility bonus. Okay, so note that down. And then manipulation. This is your attack bonus. Okay, so int and dex are primary. So each point of intelligence or dexterity.
Okay.
Above 10. And then strength is secondary. Each 2 points of strength above 10 is an attack bonus.
Okay, so my manipulation is 3.
3, okay. So you add that together with your weapon skill to get your total fist attack.
All right, so my total fist attack then is 13.
13, yeah.
Mine's 27.
27,
yep.
Yeah. So
you're going to beat the snot out of me.
Well, one of the issues with this is that it can be a bit whippy, okay, because you get to roll an attack and then the other guy gets to roll a parry or a dodge. So you can hit but actually miss. It's one of those systems.
I see.
So you have to roll under 13 to hit Corian, and Corian has to roll under 27 to hit you, but then you still each get to do a fist parry. The fist parry, you'll only have your bonus, so there's bugger all chance of doing it. And then there's your dodge, whatever your dodge is. You'll have a chance to dodge it. But you'll probably spend most of your time missing each other. So each of you roll to hit the other.
Fair enough. As the show host, I think I should get a 70% bonus, Kyle. I believe that's fair. Let's see, where's my die roll? There we go. All right, here we go. I did it backwards. I got a 31. No, 37.
So you miss him.
And I miss him.
Okay, next round. So you swing clumsily at each other. Look at this. RuneQuest got this right. Dropped oil lamp table. They know their priorities here. There's a chart just for that.
And if there's fatigue built into hand-to-hand combat too, then this is going to take even longer. That's a 40. That's a miss. I'm getting closer. Actually, the 37 was closer to you.
Nope, not on my side either. I guess whoever stole the wrong goat is just like throwing rocks at each other.
Yeah.
I hit. Oh wait, no.
I got very close. I got a 19.
I read your dice. So excited.
This is gonna become
you hit?
A 12.
Did you Corin?
No, he didn't hit, and I thought I got a 12, but it was a 72.
Yeah. Okay,
Nope.
have another go.
I hit him. I got a 7.
Oof.
Yep. Okay.
Dastardly barbarian.
Are you going to attempt to parry or dodge?
I will parry.
Okay. Roll under your parry.
Well, that
He
is
did
not
not.
under my parry.
Counter punch.
All right. I'm tired of just cycling behind through these pages. I'm going to use my all right.
That's
So
a
this
fist. That's a D3. I don't know. Oh, it is. Oh, cool.
Yeah.
That is 1 point of damage.
Now I love the dropped oil lamp table. Cracks me up. Where's our hit location? There's a different humanoid hit location for melee and for missiles.
Because of course.
Okay, where do you hit him? Roll a d20.
Right in the 11.
Okay, in the abdomen.
In the old
Hips
bread
are just
basket.
under the floating ribs. You gut
Solar
shot.
plexus. Ooh.
Yeah. All right. So that would enable you to put a check mark next to your skill, and then after an appropriate period of time, you would be able to try to roll over it to improve it, and so
There
on.
we go.
But so you can appreciate that at the lower levels of ability, combat can be quite whiffy, and it can happen again at the higher levels because, yeah, you have 90% to hit, but he's got 90% to parry as well. So
Right.
that is one difficulty with RuneQuest. It can be a bit whiffy.
So Daniel was asking, are there fantastic creatures in RuneQuest? Sure. I mean, there's
There are. There's a creature book. All right, let's go to creature.
fantastic creatures and where to murder them.
All right. So let's have a look at the creatures book. You can see on the cover, there's some stuff going on there.
Taurus and what do you call it, Manticore there. Yeah, we got stuff like that.
And comparison of typical intelligence ratings. You can see now why you rolled 2d6 plus 6, because 7 intelligence is a chimpanzee or gorilla intelligence. 6 is a baboon. 5 is a dog or cat. 4 is a sheep or raven. 3 is a shrew or chicken. 2 is an insect or shark. 1 is a worm or snail.
Pardon me.
That's why you don't roll 3d6 for intelligence. You might find yourself only as smart as a baboon.
I thought it's fun. Similarly, in D&D, if you look under the stats for the flesh golem, it's semi-intelligent. That means it has an intelligence of 4. So you could wind up with a character who's no smarter than a flesh golem. And
well, it would explain a lot of players. All right. Yes, they got monsters. They got an Allosaurus, and see, these guys have got stats too. The Allosaurus has strength of 6d6 plus 32.
Yeah.
But it's only got an intelligence of 3.
Intelligence is not a dumb stat.
There's a giant ant. There's a Bandersnatch. The Bandersnatch is derived from Lewis Carroll's book Through the Looking Glass. They are large clawed tetrapods with bright patches of colour on their hides, extensible necks, and roundish fanged skulls. Bandersnatches are vaguely leonine in general outline. They live in temperate climes, inhabiting forests and meadows. They're strictly carnivorous and generally solitary. 2d6 plus 18 strength. Basilisk. Reptilian horrors famed for deadly power. Basilisk is small with grey or green scales and 4 rooster-like clawed legs. Upon its head is a crown-like crest. Basilisks have 2 bat-like wings and a mane of black twisted feathers running down the back of the neck and body. A basilisk head is cock-like, wattled and fork-tongued. Its large eyes glare moonlight through the mist of its breast. It can kill with a glance.
Little different from your AD&D basilisk.
Yeah, if it overcomes the target, a magic point versus magic point struggle, the target dies. You just die. It doesn't say you turn to stone, you just die. Though I'd have you turn to stone because that's funnier. It's polar bear, etc. So it goes on like that. They've got all the regular kind of fantasy.
Dragons? Do we have dragons?
Mm-hmm. They have ghouls. They have elves, the worst monsters of all.
Dwarves, second worst
they
monster.
Have ducks. No,
Ducks.
sorry, correction. Ducks are the worst monsters of all.
Oh, right.
So you can have a duck adventurer.
And
dragon.
I want to reroll my character.
Dragons are gigantic flying reptiles which can breathe flame. They are clawed, fanged, and voracious. Those described here are the well-known Western European dragons. I like that. The well-known Western European dragons. Dragons are solitary, living alone and devastating the countryside. Some dragons are intelligent, but many are merely cunning animals. A game master should feel free to endow a particular dragon with normal intelligence if he desires, though most only have fixed intelligence. Dragons frequently fight by flying overhead and vomiting down fire upon their foes. Is it actually vomiting? Like, do they have to eat something bad before they can breathe fire?
I don't know. I vaguely recall in the Elric stories, which there was a Stormbringer game that also used this system that was published by Chaosium.
Yes, that's right.
But the dragon of the Melnibonean Isles, I have a dim recollection that it was that their saliva basically burned. It was like napalm almost that they breathed out. It was very, very bad stuff.
Upon exposure to oxygen or whatever.
Yeah. Again, I haven't read the Elric sagas in forever and a day, so don't quote me on that, anyone.
They have 20d6 strength and 20d6 size, so an average of 70 size, which is 70 times 6.5 kgs, about 450. It's about 1,000 pounds.
Yikes.
Something like that.
So, Kyle, we tend to think of AD&D as being very procedural, very mechanical in how treasure is handed out. You know, there's charts and tables for it. In RuneQuest, is it just all up to the game master? Like, I want you guys to find nothing in this dragon's lair. There's bones and dragon poop. Or I want you guys to find 10,000 gold pieces in this dragon's lair. Good luck calling it out. Where does it fall on that scale?
It just doesn't mention treasure.
We can
in the,
sell that
creatures
dragon
book.
anyway.
Just doesn't mention treasure in the creatures book.
It just doesn't mention. I mean, obviously, none of it.
I know. Bill's a bit speechless here. It doesn't mention.
I am too. Why? What?
You're listing monsters.
It also doesn't mention
What's in their pockets. It says, "How do we?"
Are we interviewing these monsters to work in a cafe? Where's the treasure?
Exactly. Go get your barista monsters in 5th edition. I want a treasure table.
Well, let's consult the game master book.
Oh, good. There is a treasure table. He's leading us somewhere else.
See, scenario 8, treasure and reward. Okay, so there's game mastering, game master duties, planning a campaign, scenario design, scenario aids, languages and role playing, encounter tables, treasures and reward, danger classes, optional. Okay, so go along. Adventurers from other worlds. You get transferred from the Call of Cthulhu by world to
let's face it, a world where there's dragons and
finally my weapon skills are useful, but I've only got 6 rounds in my revolver.
Yeah. I mean, that is far more preferable to, Yog Sothoth could just kind of, instantly age me and then de-age me and then just keep doing it till I go insane.
Yeah, so they talk about the different kinds of adventures: into the unknown, the quest, solving the mystery, revenge, the challenge, the escort, the puzzle, the rescue, the war or assault, the feud, blah blah blah. Scenario plot. So they have some pretty good advice on like coming up with your own adventures. And there you go. Languages and role playing, urban encounters. This is one of the things I always love about Rollmaster. So you've got your random encounter chart, right? And if you roll high on the chart, you consult the next chart along. Okay. So your urban road encounter. So you're in an urban area. You roll 96 to 100. So you get the usual thing: group of traveling nobles, priests or priestesses, adept sorcerer with entourage, soldiers passing by, cart of goods driven by crafter, blah, 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 all the sort of things you'd expect. You roll 96 to 100. Party is lost. Roll encounter from the rural table. Okay, so you accidentally wander into the countryside. You could get lost. Wander back into you roll 1 to 5. You get lost and you wander back into the city. But in the rural area, you get a peddler on the move, an empty dirt trail, plowed fields, large wild herbivore or carnivore, primitive hunters, that sort of thing. But there's a 20% chance of you're lost and you roll for the wilds table. So you go to the wilds. Again, you could wander back into the rural area. There's only 1% chance though. Meet a traveler headed towards a village, tilled field, brigands or outlaws, fields of wild carnivores, scrub and rough terrain with wild herbivores, blah, blah, blah. But you could also get lost, there's a 20% chance, and roll on the wasteland table. Where you meet...
Ask for directions.
Not asking for directions.
You find a village or a hermit or a friendly creature, human trappers, a deadly location like quicksand or poison dust or a sheer cliff. But there's a 5% chance that you go to the magical terrain table. Where you meet the magical ruler of the region, a village of immortals, a dance of nature, a neutral demigod, large herbivore, whatever, or a demonic demigod. So there is a non-zero chance that you'd be wandering through the city and you walk down a dark alley and enter a rural area into the wastelands and then come across Asmodeus. What? And you may ask yourself, how did I get here?
Did I get here? Note that's also the end. I mean, that's basically that at that point your fantasy adventure becomes a creepypasta story, and driving through the rural areas at night, you lose your phone directions, you turn down a road and there's some awful thing in front of you and you're never heard from again.
Yeah.
So
and they even give an example of that random encounter. Cormac's in trouble again. While sitting and singing to himself in a small village, several of the local toughs snuck up on him and began pelting him with rocks. Maybe he's not such a good singer. Poor Cormac.
poor Cormac.
There's a spirit plane, but at least you can't get lost and wander onto the spirit plane.
That's good. That's good.
You might encounter something from the spirit plane, but yeah. All right, treasure and reward. Treasure is an ultimate reward for an adventurer, Dill.
Excellent.
It is portable, concealable, and can be used to exchange directly for training, research, or equipment, making the adventurer stronger physically or intellectually, and just that much more likely to survive the next brush with death. Treasure is also
services work. Please continue, Kyle.
Treasure is also countable, and its existence at the end of a game gives players and adventurers alike a way of understanding the success of their session or scenario. Men and women who wager their lives expect good reward in return. As well as cash, rewards can be articles of worth, usable magic items, or information. A few adventurers might say that having eliminated a source of danger to themselves and their people is treasurer enough. I don't think so, no.
None of us are powerful.
I don't want to. Good.
But most, but not all, feel that a triumph over their foes is adequate recompense. No, I don't think most feel that way. Dude.
No,
I don't know who the author was gaming with, or if it was expressing a wish rather than recounting experience. But
the real treasure was friendship or some shit like that. No.
That's a way to get the game master punched.
It pretty much is, that and bringing weird Korean snacks.
An adventurer, now here we get to the truth. An adventurer rarely declines when pennies accompany the less tangible gifts of thanks and glory. Adventurers might receive tangible reward for their deeds, either guaranteed wages or performance bounties, or some or all of the loot gathered during the expedition. Accepting payment in loot risks that there will be none, or that it will be lost. On the other hand, guaranteed wages may be dishearteningly less than the loot actually recovered. Here, the authors will be thinking about the historical thing where soldiers and sailors would capture a lot of loot, but they'd owe it to their feudal lord or their government or whatever. And so it might actually be quite slow for them to receive any reward. Like the Royal Navy, they were supposed to receive a prize or a share of a prize if they captured an enemy ship in battle, but it quite often didn't come till 10 years later, if at all. Soldiers were a bit better off because they would just go around if they won a battle, they'd go around the battlefield, slicing the throats of the wounded and rifling through their pockets for loose change.
Yeah.
It's like, oh, this cavalry officer had a nice gold watch. I'll take that. So there's guaranteed income. So they talk about the guaranteed income, and then loot by speculation. I love it. Loot by speculation. A popular form of adventure is the freelance expedition, usually destined far from civilization. Easy to get at loot presumably has already been grabbed by predecessors. The rewards may be chimerical despite the risk, but generally high risk should mean high reward. The freelance party remains the quickest road to riches. Normally such adventurers will have one of four identities as raiders, raiders, bandits, grave robbers, or monster hunters. That's your dungeon guys, basically. And then they go into detail on that.
There you go.
Other treasures, table. So they basically leave to you what the pile of loot should be. I have run campaigns set in essentially Dark Ages Britain, and it was actually a common thing. It's probably where we got a lot of our stories of treasure hoards from, like Sigurd and the Rheingold and Beowulf and so on. Basically, like when the Romans fled Britain in the late 4th century, a lot of them buried their treasure somewhere near their old villa in the hopes that they'd be coming back a few years later to collect it or to reestablish their lives there.
Mhm.
You know, the legions are pulling out, but we'll be back, sure. And as they couldn't simply deposit their money in a bank somewhere and store it electronically, they had to physically carry it, and they didn't really want to physically carry thousands of gold pieces, since they might get robbed along the way. So they buried it somewhere. So apparently it was a fairly frequent thing that the local peasants would just go around digging holes in the ground next to the old villas in the hopes of finding something useful. So,
And you'll still see, you'll still see from time to time, man in England finds jug of Roman coins.
Yeah. So, so I based a number of adventures on that. That they were just going around looking for that, or digging up old tombs and so on. And even I've even run campaigns with no magic at all, or where the characters thought that there was magic, but there may or may not have been any actual magic. But the characters didn't know, so they see a strange silhouette in the night and hear this. They don't know if it's an animal or a werewolf or what the hell it is. So, that kind of uncertainty, and it made quite a fun campaign. So yeah, you just decide how much treasure there is, and then there's the other treasures, which is basically magical ones and healing potions and that sort of thing. Unique magic items, where they talk about just put the spells in it, basically. And then they've got cut stone values by stone type, pennies per gram for diamonds. I don't know why they need that, but anyway, it's like the drop lantern table. And then there's they've got sample jewelry, and I like this. There's special devices. Though anachronistic technical devices often appear in modern fantasy literature, be wary of them in your campaign. Avoid the player cry of, if lenses, why not telescopes, by reserving any such devices for your non-player characters. If the campaign lacks all but the simplest machinery, it is easier to maintain fantasy orientation. Anyway, but you might find something that you find it or you buy it. Things like rangefinder, water clock, telescoping staff, Greek fire, guess which the players will want, arquebus, fireworks, variable scale with sliding weight, and so on. And then they talk about danger class, where they divide the creatures into danger classes. So, dragons are very dangerous, for example. So they give example: class 1, human standard, weak, unarmed person. Creature comparison, weaker in combat than typical human. Way up to class 5. Creature comparison, so powerful they're undefeatable except by other creatures of similar class. So that's your evil demigod or whatever. And then they've got the treasure table, the pennies possible. So just normal human will have D10 pennies all the way up to the class 5 one, 1,000 pennies, and then 50 times D100. So about 6,000 pennies, something like that. And then chances of other treasure. So you could see it's a sort of a low fantasy, low treasure kind of setting.
Yeah, you're probably not going to stumble on your treasure type Z from AD&D for any of these creatures.
Yeah. So, and I think that's about it. I mean, it's sort of, they got this size equivalency table, and it's got some quite good GMing advice for developing settings. the hearth, the village, the town, talking about that. And then there's the fantasy world. And they've got their map again with the Byzantine Empire on it.
Mm-hmm.
What's in a city? Standards of living, 360 penny. I like this. It's how much it costs to live in a certain manner. Like D&D has got your levels. You spend 100 gold per month per level, whatever it is. And they've got standards of living, 360 pennies yearly, one a day. Status, menials, prisoners, slaves. Food, turnips and sauerkraut, or beet soup, or potatoes and onions, or carrots and acorns, or a cereal. Choose one of the series. Little or no meat among unlanded peasants and day labourers. Drink is buttermilk or water. Housing, perhaps none. Maybe a tiny room or hut for a family. No furniture. Clothing, sackcloth, homespun, rude leathers. Nudity. Primitives, nomads, and barbarians will have usable winter clothes if appropriate. Then 4 times that is 1,440 pennies yearly, which is most landed peasants and minor crafter, that sort of thing. Food, as per previous income tier, plus gruel, barley, bread, cheese, and eggs. Meat or fish at least once or twice a week. Housing, single dwelling per hearth, protects animals too. A lot of people don't know that. Dark Ages and a lot of the Middle Ages, so the animals often lived in the house with people. Clothes, shoes, 1 new suit of clothes a year. Winter clothes will be warm and protective. And that's 6,000 pennies a year, 24,000 yearly. That's counts and earls and so on. So they give sort of they go up to 1.4 million pennies yearly as a king, or 5.7 million pennies a year for an emperor, with a palace complex and all the rest. So it gives
you can get it.
Yeah, they describe that saying something to the effect of, so players can know, if I want to live like a king, how much is it going to cost me? And I go, okay, I can do that for a week, and then I have to go adventuring again.
Right. Right. So it is definitely a fascinating system, and I'm sorry.
I'm down. Yeah.
I was caught there by someone's comment about death rays. I don't think we quite got that deep into it, but yeah, no, this is an interesting system, and I found it to be, I joke about, hey, can I go in and take on 10 kobolds? Definitely not, but there is something to it. There definitely is something to it. For a low magic, low treasure kind of game, it's not bad. It's not bad. I mean, I'd love to. I'm sorry, what was that, Corian?
Oh, a very visceral kind of like experience to the adventuring that I like about it.
Yeah, truly, it really is. So, of course,
and in combat, if they hit you, you might even see your viscera. So,
yeah. Out there, whether you're watching this stream later, or even if you're watching now, let us know what you guys think about this, and do you want us to revisit? Kyle, were there any famous published adventures for this? Anything that I know you're all about create your own, I get it, but we have a RuneQuest
from memory. They weren't big on the modules; they were big on the settings. So there's all the Glorantha stuff, which is where they put the majority of their efforts. But they also had they had Vikings book and so on.
Hey, Wave.
Let me think. So Wikipedia.
I know they had a lot of focus on religion, like you had cults of something and then cults of Prax. They were big on their deities.
Yeah, they were big on that. They go like this. It's like Tekkamel. It's just insanely complicated. They go right into it.
Right.
Stuff.
But I mean,
so they had few adventures. You can find it listed on Wikipedia. There was Snakepipe Hollow was an adventure. RuneQuest Adventures in Caverns of Chaos, which may sound familiar. There was more monsters. The Gateway Bestiary. Griffin Mountain was an adventure as well. Yeah, they were mostly big on the settings. So they had the Land of Ninja, Elder Secrets of Glorantha. Apple Lane was a famous adventure. Into the Troll Realms was another one.
Apple Lane.
Yeah, I think
there's a duck on the cover, I think.
Yeah, in that one, I think there's a village is being threatened by 4 giant beetles, but I could be wrong. If you got that, congratulations.
Yeah. Yeah, so that's about it. I mean, there's always more little details to go into, but that's about it. You can see that you get an idea of the cost of things as well. So you guys have got like 100 or 120 pennies of gear that you can sell off, or animals that you can sell off to get things. And then you look at the armor. There's different sizes of armor based on your size. Can't remember what the categories are. Medium size is just the average. So Queerbilly armor is 225 pennies. Soft leather armor is 70. Stiff leather is 100. And then if you go into things like like plate mail is 16,875.
That's a bit above the 400 gold you got to scrape together as an AD&D character. I got to tell you.
Yeah. So like, it's a pretty gritty kind of system, and the progression and expense of gear is a really point of diminishing returns.
Right.
Point of diminishing returns. It's like, because you look at going like chainmail is 12,000. Presented as 525, scale is 2,400, and so on, and so it becomes that thing of like when you're hiring men at arms or something, you for the cost of one man at arms in chain with a sword and a good shield or whatever, you could have half a dozen men at arms in leather with spears, and they'll probably do more, those half dozen guys.
Yeah. Dice Tales is saying the nice thing about RuneQuest is combat is fast and deadly. I don't know. It seemed pretty swingy. I think it took us a lot of dice rolls for me to
that was
Orion and Soul.
That too, consider too the damage that you're talking about, right? Because you were talking about your fist with 1d3 damage. Right now, if you get a one-handed sword, a bastard sword does 1d10 plus 1 hit points of damage. So if you had hit him with a bastard sword, and then look at the hit location's damage, when he gets reduced to 0, that location gets no longer useful. So what's your abdomen hit points, Corium?
Abdomen was like 5 or 6 or something. Yeah, 6.
Yeah. So if you just do average damage, if you just do an average damage with the bastard sword and had stabbed him in the abdomen, he would have fallen down with his legs unable to work.
Okay. All right. Well, I can see it.
Yeah. So the system is a bit whiffy. It has a lot of misses, and then when your skill improves, if you're fighting somebody with similar skill level, they're going to parry or dodge you as much, quite often as well. So it's going to be a lot of misses. Kind of tends to be, when you're using weapons, it's like miss, death. So, which is a bit like modern firearms in that respect.
Yeah, that makes sense.
Yeah,
like Conflict was. You can argue about the exact amounts, like when it says 1d10 plus 1 versus another one being 1d8 plus 1 really is the broadsword is it that much different? Who knows? You can argue about that, but yeah, it gives you an idea. Like there's 1d3 versus 1d10 plus 1. When you're talking about 5 hit points in a particular location, is a big difference.
Yep.
Because 1d3, you can't hurt him. Because as well, you think of Corion, he'd have his 1d3 if he'd hit you. It's plus 1d4 because he's a big, strong guy.
Literally could have like damaged my internal organs with that punch. So
So because he would have done up to 7 points of damage, and you got what, 3 or something?
Yeah,
you got 3 or something in your guts, and then you think of you being hit with a bastard sword, and you're unarmored.
Ooh.
Yeah. So I think, is it quick? Well, it depends on the relative skill levels of the combatants. But it is deadly. Yeah, it is deadly. It's a bit like you guys should look up on YouTube. There's a nice little story video called Night of Hope. And in that, there's a woman who's being assaulted by a bunch of brigands and that, and she tries to sneak off and run off into the woods, and she prays, and the Knight of Hope appears. A guy appears in armor. And he just he just cuts through these guys because they're unarmored or wearing just leather armor, and he's in plate mail, and they're just regular brigands, and he's an experienced warrior, and he just cuts through them like nobody's business. RuneQuest would do that. You would get that in RuneQuest. In D&D, you would have to make them 0 level or -1 hit dice guys, and him like a 7th level fighter, something like that.
I mean, to be fair, as brigands, they would be, and a holy being sent down from God would also be a high level. But that's an edge case.
2 ways of representing.
Yeah, but I think the way the combat looks in Night of Hope is pretty much the way the combat would look in RuneQuest. It's just that RuneQuest has a lot more misses. And if you take the misses as, like D&D says, it's your combat round in which you had a chance to make a good strike. There'll be lots of instances when you just touch the guy, but don't do any harm, or you come close or whatever. That was your chance to do a really good strike. And when we see it in movies, they omit all that back and forth and the little slaps that don't do anything and everything, because that's boring. We want to see the big whack, the stab, and all the rest.
Many of them do. I fall back on the duelists for being an example of one that doesn't. But that's an edge case. There was a question for Orbital Air. Yes, we let Lord Corion talk. The poor guy, he didn't even know he was going to be here until like 5 minutes before we switched everything on. It was like we literally did the entertainment equivalent of running into the audience and throwing a sack over his head and dragging him up on stage. So he was he was going to be here. But is there any reflection that you have, Lord Corion, before we wrap up this evening?
Just that I'll have my setup next time, and I'm eager to hex crawl with this, right?
Well, I mean, I think we were going with D&D rules on the hex crawl, but Kyle's a game master, so
I don't mind whatever people play.
It'll come down to him. And so if you're out there and you're a patron or a member for as little as $1 or $2, and you want to sit here on a Wednesday night and get dragged through the brambles and undergrowth and possibly walk into a hex and encounter Asmodeus, you can hit me up on socials, and Kyle will be more than happy to facilitate that. We just need a couple more volunteers who are willing to do that.
And you better step up, otherwise I'm running 10 people myself.
He'll run an entire party. So thank you for the insight into RuneQuest, Kyle. That was awesome. definitely appreciate it. But the fun don't stop when it comes to systems, guys. Tomorrow night, David McLeese will be here talking about Project Sunflower, delightful post-apocalypse bit of fun, and he's going to be on here with us, and we're going to talk about all about what Project Sunflower is. I'm excited. I hope you guys are excited. I hope the Dave is excited. That's you. That's right. That's the Dave.
I wish I had a PDF of this. I could like send it out to you guys. The setting, the setting that I'd forgotten that I had, sitting there in the RuneQuest box.
Scanner.
Or a YouTube member, Orbital.
Yeah. Again, it's as little as $1. It's as little as $1 a month. That's Kyle was like, this is what we're going to do. And he's my co-host. I agreed with it. So it's as little as $1 or $2. But if you want to go bigger, that's up to you. But I do
company.
I do want to thank Kyle, the Viking Hat GM, for flying this plane tonight. Lord Corion for being voluntold he was going to be on this train tonight.
It's a really good sport too. The player who is reliable and shows up and just like steps up at the last minute. I think that's really good sport. That's very much in the spirit of what we want to see in games.
Yes, indeed. So I'm gonna take the spotlight off them. Let them go grab. I think there's some crab puffs left, guys, back in the craft service table. So help yourselves. As for me, I'm gonna let those guys go. And whoa, where am I? Can I do that? There I am. Okay. But guys, thank you again all very much. If you liked the video, give it a thumbs up. Click subscribe, click the bell icon for notifications, and we'll be back tomorrow again with David McLeese. We'll be talking about Project Sunflower. Thank you, everybody, for being here. Love you all. Peace. Good night.
Have you seen my owl bear? It's to all the weirdos everywhere in the woods and in the air. You see my owl bear? Should I shave off all my hair? Bobs are all around. Some live in tunnels underground. Some are fat, some are rich, some are sleeping in a ditch. Can you ride a crooked horse without a saddle way out course? Naked as a toad, all the way to Smoky Joe's. Have you seen the little creep driving fast in this little green Jeep? He smells like fish and brandy, but his rotten teeth look dandy. Take me to the show, I don't care if fast or slow. From action flicks to dancing things, just take me to the show.